Hi, I'm Mike Svob, and today I want to talk about some of the drawing tools you would use in your painting process. Laid out here before me today, I've got not everything, but a lot of the things you could use, and I'm going to demonstrate a couple of them and when you might want to use them or might not want to use them. So, one of the things you have to think about as an artist is if you want your lines to show, your preliminary drawing lines if you draw, or if you want them to disappear as you paint. Some artists don't do any preliminary drawing with tools other than the paint, but most artists do. Now in front of me here, I've got pencils, I've got pens, I've got brush pens, I've got fat conte and thin conte, I've got charcoal, I've got pastel, and I've got regular old chalk. And I use all these things at different times in my painting. Now, here I've got a dark surface, so I can show you how it may look on a dark surface or when I might use it on a dark surface. Then over here, I've got some lighter surfaces. Now, these things you can use anywhere, anytime. They're compatible with painting, but there are a couple of them which have issues, and one of them is the brush pens or pens. Now, inks will come through pigmented paint. So if you use a black or a gray or any color ink under your painting, it will eventually come through to the surface even though you think you're covering it. So that's one of the things you want to avoid. You want to not use an ink if you don't want to see it in the painting. So stay away from those if you don't want to see it. If you want to see it, no problem. So some people will do a thing in acrylic, which is almost like a pen and ink wash that you might have done in watercolor, or you've probably seen that somewhere, all right? Another thing that people will do is they'll draw with things that come off completely, such as charcoal or chalk or something like that, and they'll do these wonderful drawings, and then they go to paint it and it just disappears. So the drawing is really useless as a guide. It's a good idea, it's kind of fun to get your drawing down, but as soon as you paint on it, it disappears. So they disappear completely. This doesn't disappear at all. Now the compromise is in the middle somewhere. Now I've got three things that will work: pencils, conte, and pastel. Pastel sticks a little bit, and to some degree it'll stay. You can paint over it, or you can see it come through your painting. Pencils, some come off completely, some don't. Some pencils have more of a greasy kind of consistency is the way I think of it. And some pencils have more of a graphite kind of consistency. And the greasy ones will tend to melt with the acrylic and they'll smudge and move around. The other ones don't. So they're all, they all have drawbacks. Pastel comes in chalk pastel, straight chalk pastel, or chalk, and then there's certain amounts of wax or oil that they put in it, so those don't tend to come off with the water-based mediums such as acrylic. So they have different issues. This one's kind of in the middle. This is conte, so it's somewhere between a pencil and chalk and this and that, and a lot of artists will use this to draw with as well. It's also close to charcoal. So I'm just going to show you a couple of things here, all right? Now, this conte here, I use quite often to draw, and this is a brown, or call it burnt sienna or something like that. You see that there? I'll put out a bigger patch of it, but you can also, draw whatever it is you want. And there it is. That's on a rough paper, which is similar to canvas. All right. Now, some artists will use this to do a more detailed drawing, and they'll start to blend and soften and use it how you might use charcoal. Right? You can see it won't come off completely, but you can soften it a bit, and you can do it on dark. And again, you see how it softens out? So you can plan your painting a little more, or you can do it on light. This has more texture. Right? So that's conte, so you get kind of a gradation. So you can kind of plan your painting as you're drawing, all right? So that's that stuff. Now charcoal, again, this is on paper this time, but it works the same on canvas, does a similar kind of thing. Right? You can see what happens. Right? So you can soften it in. The problem with charcoal, as soon as you introduce paint into charcoal, it disappears completely. This one will not. So it's kind of a compromise, all right? The other thing that artists use quite a bit, and I use a lot, is I use pencils, okay? And a big part of your painting process is, you know, how much of your drawing you want to see and how much you don't want to see. So again, this is a pencil, and this is an all lead pencil or all graphite or whatever you want to call it. It's a solid core. I'm trying to look at the number. I believe it's a 2B. I can't find the number, but it's kind of a soft pencil. So I can get it dark. I can do whatever I want to draw, and if I want, I can shade a little bit. And this is on paper, so I can do the same kind of thing. Or I can draw whatever it is I want to draw. This will also work on black. It shows up on black. And I draw with pencil on black sometimes. It's the same kind of thing. It shows up. There is a guide so that I can use it when I'm painting. Okay? Now, the last thing I'll show you today is pastel. Now, pastel I've used similar to the conte, but sometimes when I'm doing a painting, this is probably a good place for this. When I'm doing a painting, and I've got paint on the other side here, so I've got paint on this here. This is dried already. And say I want to create just a line or a shape. So there's a lovely color pastel. And I can go and draw into it instead of using paint. And that will stay. Now, this is more of a chalk pastel. If I want it to stay really well, I will get more of an oil or waxy pastel, and that will not come off no matter what. And again, this is in the painting process. So I've got paint on here, so I'm partway through. This one will stay. The last thing I've got here that I want to show you is chalk. This is straight chalk, all right? So if I, again, want to draw something, you know, circle, whatever it is, right? On there, I can use that as a guide for when I paint now. And this one I would do the same thing, although this one would tend to stay. Now I'm just going to get a little bit of water here down below me, and I'm going to show you how that comes off. So I've got a spray bottle here with water in it, and I'm just going to spray a little bit on here, so this is damp. And you can see after I've painted something, if it's chalk, it just comes right off. So I don't leave anything behind. Now the pastel doesn't come off as much, but it does come off a little bit. This is more of a chalky pastel. I have others at home. I use oil sticks and different things, so it leaves a little bit more. But those are some of the tools you need to use to create paintings you love and get effects that work for you. So do you want to see the drawing when you're done, or is it a guide? Do you want it to come off? Whatever it is you want to do, these are some of the things you can use in your painting process to create better paintings. I hope you found this information useful. Now, I have a handout called How to Fix Your Painting, and you can get it by clicking on the link below. Thank you for watching.